I think what we learned in Triangle was the incredible exhilaration of being able to accomplish something as a group that you couldn't possibly accomplish alone. And for me, it is, without doubt, the most important thing I learned at Princeton. So it is a great joy for me to have deep, deep friendships across 7 decades of Triangle alumni and Triangle parents, and we are a big, big family. 5 years ago, Hill Moss said to me right before she graduated, "I can't believe it's almost over." And I said, "Oh, sweetie, it's not over. It's just beginning." So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone in the Alumni Association who makes our graduation a great beginning and a great community to belong to forever. Thanks.
Princeton locomotive cheer.
Hip, hip, rock, tiger, 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 sis, boom, 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 ah, Kendall, Kendall, Kendall.
Wherever 2 or more Triangle people gather, it's a performance. Command or not, so thank you, Kendall. Last but certainly not least is Judy McCartan-Scheide, and as I read earlier, a lot of letters following that. So spouse and widow of class of 36, parent of class of 84, honorary class of 28, 31, 32, 34, 36, 37, 40, 43, and 7. Wow. When Judy Scheide was P-Raid Marshal, she donned the distinctive Da Vinci hat. That was just one of the hats that Judy has worn in her long and close relationship with Princeton, stretching back to 1980. It was that fall that her daughter Kate McCartan, class of 84, arrived on campus as a freshman. Judy arrived soon after to volunteer in any way she could, simply asking the university, "What can I do to help?" She became an indispensable helping hand in West College. Kate's classmates and friends also found her indispensable, as her home in Princeton was always open and the kitchen often filled with Princeton students. Following Kate's graduation, Judy transitioned from volunteer to staff when she joined the development office, first in the events and then in annual giving areas. She brought her prodigious charm, good humor, and not least diplomacy and communications to working with the old guard. And the old guard loved working with her. Even the most curmudgeonly smiled for Judy. She listened to their stories and their lore, and they knew that she was on their team, whether it was helping with their fundraising questions or with queries about football game schedules. Annual giving staff remember her as mission-driven and a force multiplier, someone who could bring out the best in people through the alchemy of her personality and her ability. She could make people feel a part of the broader enterprise. Kate chalks up Judy's annual giving success to her mother's generous spirit. Once she loves something, she just wants to share it with everyone. She loved Princeton, and she wanted to share how great Princeton was so that everyone else loved Princeton too. It was certainly this generous spirit that Bill Scheide, class of 36, recognized when he asked her to help administer the Scheide Fund in 2000. The Scheide Fund supports organizations in the arts and education, civil rights, healthcare, and poverty relief. And of course, Bill Scheide was one of the university's greatest benefactors of the past century, with the gifts of the Scheide Caldwell House and the magnificent Scheide Library in Firestone, to name only a few. Bill married Judy in 2003. Speaking after Bill's death at 100 in 2014, former university librarian Karen Trainer said, "As we reflect on the accomplishments and generosity of Bill Scheide, it is important to acknowledge as well the contribution of his wife Judy, whose care, advice, and constant companionship enabled Bill to enjoy such a long and happy life." Even with her Scheide Fund responsibilities, Judy still had plenty of time for Princeton, and she put her volunteer hat back on. She sat on the Parents Class Committee from 2004 to 2008 and served as chair of the class chair of the class associates from 2004 to 2016. She continues to organize and sponsor reunions events for the Old Guard, the dinners and entertainments after P-Raid, as well as the brunches on Sunday morning, link undergraduate and graduate alumni, current faculty and retired faculty, family and friends. She brings together old and young, all out of a love for Princeton. Judy's service has been loyal, constant, generous, and multifaceted, and she has been loved and esteemed by generations of Princetonians. From those who walked the campus in the 1920s to those who will still be walking the campus in the 2020s and beyond. From Kate's classmates who still seek her out during reunions to all who continue to benefit from the exemplary gifts that are the Scheide legacy. Judy, please accept with our deepest thanks this Crystal Tiger and the richly deserved award for service to Princeton.
You know Judy?
No, I don't.
She's really acceptable.
It sounds
She
like...
was at our class dinner. She always comes to our class dinner. I think we met her on her campus.
Wow.
She wears the blazer. And she's just amazing.
Wow, thank you. Goodness sake. Well, I read the other day, I think in the New York Times, that 100 is the new 65. And I think this is very true. It's really come home to me, and just thinking about reunions and people coming back. And I remember at Bill Scheide's 55th reunion, he was elected vice president for endowment. And he'd never been elected to anything before. And I was there as the class liaison. And he said, wow, finally I'm a big wheel on campus. And it was time for him to write his first letter to his classmates, asking them to contribute to the endowment. And a letter had been sent out as one of the samples that said, dear classmate, it's September, and the leaves are turning red and gold, and we can hear the bells at Old Nassau ringing. And his wife called me and said, well, the letters that were sent to him are beautiful, but he refuses to send them, and he's written his own letter. And you have to come over right now and tell him he can't send it. Oh my God, what's he done? So I went over and I looked at the letter he'd written, and it was, Dear Buzz, I've just been elected vice president for the endowment, and I've been looking at our record, and I see that we are on the bottom 10% of endowment classes. And I think that's disgusting, and we have to get up there. And I'm determined to put us in the top 10%. And so I'm going to give to the endowment, and I want you to do so too. So fork it over, Buzz. And pretty soon we'll be in that top 10%. And she said, you can't let him send it. I said, this is one of the best letters I've ever sent. So we sent it, and the money poured in. It was just wonderful. And I thought, you know, he started really getting active, and he seemed to feel better and was more jolly, and reminded me then, the next experience I had that told me how important Princeton is, was one day I got a call from a student in the alumni office who was answering phones, and she said, I have this woman on the phone and I don't know what to do. And I answered the phone, and this woman said, well, I have a problem here. There's a man here who seems to be lost, and he can't remember his name or where he lives, but he knows his class at Princeton. Well, it was one of my favorite classes. He was one of the classes in the 20s. And so I knew right away who it must be. So I quickly called his wife and she said, "Oh, he's gone. He's missing. We can't find him anywhere. He walked out the door." And so I told her where he was, and she called the woman, and they had a nice reunion and brought him home, and it was wonderful. If you want to stay involved. Now, sometimes there are surprises. A student once at one of our telethons came over to me. I was staffing, and he said, "What happened in the 60s?" What? Why? And he said, "Well, I just talked to an alum who said he was never going to give to Princeton again because of what happened in the 60s. He said, I don't know of anything that happened in the 60s. Well, I had to explain to him the Vietnam War and protests and all that. But my favorite story about about calling alums comes from one September when we were calling alumni to thank them for their gifts. And I was the person on the staff who was supervising, and this boy came up to me and he said, "I just had the strangest call." And I said, "What was it?" He said, "Well, I called Arthur Holden, class of 12. And I said, 'Mr. Holden, this is Stan Smith, the class of 94. He said, and there was this gasp. And Arthur Holden said, "I thought I was the oldest alum." It's just been so wonderful, this relationship with Princeton over the years. And I have to tell you that reunions only went up to the 65th until about 91, when the class of 21 decided that they would put on a 70th reunion. And Tom Robertson invited his classmates to come. 9 of them came. And then the next year, 22 did the same, 23, 24, 25 was very memorable because George Kennan gave the reunion address to the class. And it's gone on now, and now the 75th is celebrating. And there's one graduate here today who is from the class of 37, and it's his 80th, and he's going to walk again. So, you know, 100 is the new 65. You guys are going to go on for ages, and you're going to have a wonderful time. It's just the best old place of all, and I want to thank my daughter for introducing me to this wonderful place. I'm going to tell a little story, Kate. I hope you don't. When she was a senior and coming back to be introduced in her first P-grade, I said to her, "Kate, why are all these people coming back for reunions? Why do they do that?" She said, "Well, Mom, think of it this way. For 4 years, you have an affair with the most wonderful person on earth. And then it stops. But every year after, you get to come back and renew it. And that's the way people feel." Wow, that's really something. And you know, I think you're all very lucky, all of you who have graduated from Princeton. I'm glad women are admitted now. I think that's wonderful. My boss, Kirk Unruh, my boss, Bill Hart, and our former leader, Van Williams, were all wonderfully welcoming and accepting and great bosses. And now, just having been out for a while, I love to come back to reunions. accomplishments, and I understand what you said, Kate. And it's great to have a grandson, Alex Brager from the class of 97, and a nephew in the class of 91. And so I get to experience all these different waves of reunions. And I'm very grateful, and I thank you very, very much for this.
Hopefully you all can see why we decided on these 4 worthy alumni for inclusion in the awards this year. And this really is the secret sauce, from reunions to graduate work to the Princeton Prize in Race Relations to development and Triangle and all the other ways that we engage in Princeton over the years. This is what makes it work. And this is the special sauce. And these are the 4 best representatives this year. And we look forward to great nominees and great award recipients next year. So if you would join me in a toast to these individuals. We have champagne that we will send around. A glass of water, but give them a few seconds to hand these out, because that's an important part of the toast. Grab some glasses for you guys.
Also, Judy initiated, just on her own, a dinner on Saturday evening after the parade for the old guard.
Right.
She assembles all the old classes, and the classes of whom she's an honorary member. And she throws this dinner at Jasna Polana for, 100 of her favorite.
Wow.
Year after year. A remarkable person.
Remarkable.
Of course, Bill already left her with resources.
That's true.
But there are a lot of things one could use them on.
If you all wouldn't mind standing up. To our very honored and worthy recipients, to Tony, to Susan, to Judy and Kendall, for your years and years, hundreds of years if you add it all up together, of service in so many important and diverse ways to Princeton. We can't thank you enough, but we hope this is a token, and we look forward to many more years of your continued support and service on our behalf. So thank you very much.
Yeah.
We are officially adjourned.